You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live or listening to replay. Always a pleasure. Today's episode is 163, cost of living versus cost of doing business. So just want to thank you for tuning in live once again or listening to replay nationally, internationally. I just always want to give a big shout out to everybody, all the trustees that listen. Just always want to thank you all that listen as well. This show is being catered towards trustee training. That's what the Vault does, is trustee training, and it deals with trustees and their training development, management over different levels of assets and things of that nature. We're all managers of assets. It's just some of us have been particularly taught one way, and others have been taught a different way. And so everybody's financial education is different. Everybody's asset management, contract, business management skills are all different. And so, for that reason, today we're definitely going to make it a point to go over a healthy conversation of cost of living versus the cost of doing business. But we're going to start out as we always do, which is our Tuesday episode at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Vault, on the YouTube, and every other platform, iTunes as well, the Vault. And so, just going to move forward. Just quick pieces of news. Vista Equity Partners acquires EXP, a provider that has $1 billion. You all can look into that. It's a great online company that is doing that. Don't have much news actually this week. Depleted Medicare trust is an opportunity. We just saw actually a company that didn't go public today. What company didn't go public today? Actually, a company didn't go public today. They pulled their IPO back, and it just looked very embarrassing for the company. It showed that their filings were not ready. It was a company we work. So when you look at that company, you can see that they literally rescinded their offer to go public. It means they weren't ready to file and go public. So it just lets you know where the mindset of the company is. So we're just going to go ahead and move into today's episode, which is cost of living versus cost of doing business. And this is a very important subject for so many people that come to the vault. They listen, and this is where we get down to the chase. We get down to business versus personal, and this is one of the biggest things that maybe differentiates the entrepreneur investor versus the employee and employee mindset. And so the way that we get around employee mindset is by knowing that there's a cost to doing business. Cost of living. What do they say? Some politicians they what do they plead poverty. Why wouldn't they? They're telling you they don't have any money. They're telling you tax breaks so you can cost of living versus the cost of doing business is definitely a clear distinction between business versus personal. That separates what? Public versus private. And we always know that gives us the clear distinction. Why? Because business is based off of contracts, the cost of doing business. Cost of living has nothing to do with business, it's personal. And so we know that there's a difference between public and private based off of that now, because business is based off of contracts. And what contracts would those be for your fringe benefits as an officer of a company? Everybody wants to say they're a boss, they're a CEO, but they don't have the CEO contract in place. The CEO contract is operating agreement and corporate bylaws. These are documents that you have in place as an entrepreneur investor when you have a company, when you're the founder, when you're the CEO, CFO, CMO. You're on the board of directors, so you're an officer. There's an officer contract in place, not an employee contract. An officer. The officers ride on the corporate jet. The officers ride in the corporate vehicles. And so those documents, as that accompany with your articles of organization, what else comes with your C corp, articles of organization, or what is that? The yeah, articles of organization or incorporation. And those are varied in different states. You all can look into that. But how is the distinction between the cost of living versus the cost of business a big deal? It's everything. If there's a cost of doing business, that means it's a business expense. It's not personal. That means everything's a business expense. Life is a business expense. The cost of living is for employees. The cost of living is for wage earners. The cost of doing business is not knowing how well the income is. We were talking to a trustee earlier. They have some really good tactics, which is interesting to say the least. But they literally said that right now they're in the process of doing what Amazon would have done, or which Amazon's doing, which is a corporate buyback policy. So they're in the process of developing within internally, and so they give the distinction that their company is going through woes right now. Literally, that was the statement. It's going through cash flow woes. The cash flow is erratic. These are the terms that they use because when you do have the vocabulary for business, you utilize that vocabulary in business, particularly when it comes to exaggerative words such as erratic in terms of that nature. When they say the cash flow is not just pleasurable in many different ways, but in turn, these companies are still growing internally. So it's very important to at least have some type of grasp on what's corporate expenses and what's not. And that's one of the biggest things that as an entrepreneur and when people are converting to entrepreneurship, they don't know. They really don't know. They walk into a file of 1040 still going in as employees. A lot of people walk into the situation where they're doing the S corp and they're saying, "Oh, it's a pass through." So many people that are doing the LLCs and they're saying it's a pass through and it's going directly to them as an individual, and in turn, that's the cost of living. That's not the cost of doing business, because the cost of doing business is only letting the business do business. It's not personal. It's always business. The cost of living is done through cost of doing business. Think about how many of you all have given your company a loan. Think about how many of you all come out of pocket with personal money to go into your companies, your LLCs, your C corps, your S corps. Think about how many of you all have come out of pocket from your job to your business. Did you guys record those expenses? Because that's the cost of doing business. You recording those expenses, properly reporting those expenses. Because that's the cost of living for you, right? On the personal side, it's the cost of living. And the business side is the cost of doing business. So what is it costing you by you not reporting? You're not able to show that the company's been extended credit from you personally. And that's why, when it pays you back, it provides the company vehicle. Because you worked hard. You invested in the company. Isn't that what you say? You invested in the company. So where's the return? Does it have to be in monetary value? No, it does not. It's called fringe benefits. Fringe benefits come from the corporation being able to provide extensions of per diem, which are legally allowed. You all can look up publication 15B if you have an EIN. That is where you go. You can call the alphabet, the three-letter name, and you all can ask them what is the fringe benefits document. And they have it. It's the employer's guide because you have an EIN, because it's business. It's not personal. Personal is the social. You know that. Business is what? The EIN. The doing business. Some people say we're not. We have to address so much because so many people go get a DBA, doing business as and all this other stuff, and it gets very convoluted. But was that business or was it personal? And if we know that, then we know the proper perspective. If you are doing business as something, it's not business. Businesses need a DBA, not you, because it's business, not personal. So the cost of living versus the cost of doing business is what? Missed out opportunities to report credit extensions from the private. How many times did you report that you put money into the company? Your friends put money into the company. Your family put money into the company. Where did you report that? See, that's the cost of doing business. The business, how is the business going to get off the ground if it couldn't get a loan from the bank? Friends and family, you. So you supplied the seed, and the cost of doing business now is that, hey, instead of you going out and buying a personal vehicle, you invested in a company to have a company vehicle because it's an investment. It's a business expense. Investments are write-offs. Why? There's no guarantees you're going to make money in investments. And until you earn back the principal, what is the ROI? It's a loss. And it's a loss until principal is made in investments. Cost of living, cost of doing business. Cost of doing business is very important, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely wanted to point that out this episode. Does your life have an operating agreement? The business does. That's why it's a business expense, because it's substantiated. Where in your personal life can you substantiate driving to work? I'm driving to work every day. I need to write off the gas. But if it's a corporate card with the corporate gas card, that's business expenses, not personal. And what happened? Most people went through the public school education and they came out and they became dependent on not knowing how to establish a business over doing things personally. And then it's so hard to lift these muscles and these weights of so-called going up and opening up a LLC, C Corp, and going and making sure you can build credit. And you all know how you guys are doing it. You do go open up the LLCs, the C Corps, the S Corps. So if these entities are being opened up across the board, where's the substantiation on the back end of operating agreements and corporate bylaws? Where do we hear those things? Where's your friends benefits package for the board members? Or because when you look at it, you guys got to look at the websites and see there's a difference between a manager and a member. There's a difference, and it varies from state to state almost. So you have to be very aware of that. But that's the cost of doing business, though. Calculating the details. How much did you really put into the company? See, so many people want to calculate, oh, this gas, this car. But what about your time? How does your time get recompensated from the company? Because that's hours that you're doing business on behalf of the company and it hasn't turned a profit. It may have, but even if it turned a profit, you still put in hours. So everyone wants to count the dollars of the expenses, but what happens to them? How do they become an expense to the company? You become an expense through fringe benefits. You go look at the documents and see what allows you on the corporate side, the public side, to afford you the best contract. You want to go pro, you get the best contracts. That's the cost of doing business, though. The cost of living is car, house, food, clothing. These are things that are fringe benefits. So, the cost of living, not much to say about it. It's public. It's a position of people say, "Oh, we've heard this before it comes to the vote." They said, "Well, can I get rid of my tax write-offs on the public side? And what if the private side doesn't equal that? Or what if the business side doesn't equal that?" You're thinking personally, because you're not mentioning business. We're talking about the business, the cost of living versus doing the cost of doing business. Because business has business expenses. Personal life doesn't have the type of. We always talk about what do you think is going to have greater everything, business or personal? Business. So it's business, it's not personal. And that's the cost of living. Is that sometimes when you're trying to make a living, you forget to make a life. And a life is provided through multiple income streams, through multiple businesses, through multiple ventures. Where everybody told you you should only do one thing, that's where you failed. You don't need to be doing one thing. Multiple streams of income comes from being a DJ behind the wheel of your life and not letting someone else tell you to minimize your productivity and miss sleep, not miss sleep. Oh, you gotta get sleep so you can do a cost of living. Since we put dollars in, we just want to make sure that you all are aware that when it comes to doing business, you have to be able to do business with contracts. Excuse me, we lost our place for a second. We got to get it back 1 second here.